For the second straight week, UFC Fight Night was headlined by the heavyweights. This weekend, the UFC has a championship triple header, UFC 259. Plus, we got news from the UFC, Bellator, and LFA. Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. I'm Micah Frankel. Let's get started with the results from UFC Fight Night. Rozenstruik versus Gane. 9-fight card that, due to injuries and COVID-19 protocols, dwindled down all the way to 9 fights. Gives us a great opportunity, though, to go through the whole card, all the results. Start off in the light heavyweight division, where Justin Jacoby gets the decision win over Maxime Grishin. Grishin, takedown and a knockdown, right hand in the first round. Finished that round on Jacoby's back. Looked like he was in the driver's seat. Had control going into that second round, but it was the volume, striking, and damaging leg kicks from Jacoby that would add up over the next 2 rounds, the final 10 minutes giving him the decision victory. Then we had an inspiring performance from a debut, or his official Octagon debut, for Ronnie Lawrence. A hybrid vehicle that doesn't run out of gas. The kid just kept going and going. A relentless pace, great chain wrestling, 3 takedowns just in the first round. I believe it was 7 overall, or 7 just through the first 2 rounds. A lot of top control. Putting it on Vince Conchero, a seasoned veteran who had a lot of experience in the LFA. To see this performance, the ground and pound, and the finish in the second round from Lawrence, I mean, a star in the making, living up to the expectations that Dana White has for the bantamweight coming off the Contender Series. Women's bantamweight action, Sabina Mazo looked good early, popping the jab, but then the leg kicks and the grappling took over from Alexis Davis. Davis putting Mazo on her back. Mazo, no answer for the ground and pound and the grappling of Davis, who returned after 2 years away from injury. A big win, and now at 135. She's tried 45, tried 25 throughout her career. Now back at 35, looking to make a run at the top 15. Now, somebody that definitely deserves to be talked about near the top 15 in the lightweight division, Thiago Moises beats Alexander Hernandez by unanimous decision. A mixture of pressure, calf kicks, and big right hands piling up for Thiago Moises as he racks up another decision victory. We move on to the main card, where the sharper striking and takedown defense of Alex Caceres ran his win streak to 4 in a row, getting the decision nod over Kevin Croom. Fight of the night, Pedro Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera. It was a rematch. These two guys were killing each other with calf kicks, but it was the Munoz assault that added up more diligently and had the more effectiveness, limiting the movement and then finding a home for his right hand. Pedro Munoz back in the win column, coming off of a split decision loss to Frankie Edgar. Evens the series between the two at 1 apiece, and also solidifies himself there in that top 10 of the bantamweight division that's full of killers right now. And we'll be talking about that title fight this weekend in just a moment. As we continue up the card, you saw Montana De La Rosa and Mayra Bueno Silva fight to a draw. And really the story of the fight was Bueno Silva doing damage, but an early foul in the first round, the cage grab, being costly and leading to the draw. But I don't know if they'll be able to run it back soon, as a lot of damage was inflicted by Bueno Silva with the elbows in the knees in the clinch to Montana De La Rosa. Unfortunate that she blew it with the cage grab. Cannot happen. Move on up to the co-main event. Magomed Ankalaev has now won 5 in a row in the UFC's light heavyweight division, defeating Nikita Krylov in what was not the most exciting fight, but was a diligent performance. It was the power striking from the Russian, from Ankalaev, that made the difference and really had the Ukrainian fighter Krylov on his back foot the entire night and trying to make this a grappling match. To his credit, Ankilov landed big strikes, did not allow the fight to get to the ground. So the Russian looking like a real threat now as he moves up from number 11 to probably taking Krylov's number 8 in the light heavyweight contender rankings. And to the main event, still unbeaten, Ciryl Gane is able to get the unanimous decision victory over Gane Rozenstruik, and it was one-way traffic. An impressive display from Gane, the former Muay Thai fighter, with an incredible game plan. Some people called it boring, had things to say on the internet. I find it to be a really cerebral and strategical fight put forth from Gane, where he kept it at a long range distance, didn't get into brawls with the heavy-handed Rozenstruik, and saw Rozenstruik's fear to have the fight hit the ground, so that when they did get into close enough range, Gane went right to the clinch, attacking takedowns, getting 2 throughout the 5-round affair, not getting much done though on the ground. But the story of the fight was his long-range weapon. The teep kick, the side kick to the knee, outside leg kick, and his jab. Being the faster, more elusive party, you saw Gane just being able to exploit those advantages, jump in, land his strikes, kind of like a fencer, and then get out of danger. Rozenstruik was not able to close the distance or make anything happen for himself, was really sitting back, hoping to land a left hook. Bad strategy. Great display of fight IQ from Ciryl Gane. I know people wanted to see more violence, a bigger finish, but unfortunately sometimes when you're taking on a knockout artist, it's just the smarter move to play it safe and to use your game plan. Now looking back at some of the bigger winners of the night, where do they go to next? Well, of course, we got to talk about that main event winner, Ciryl Gane. Still unbeaten at 8-0. He's now taken out the number 4 ranked contender in the division, and Rozenstruik, I would have to say though he's going to take a step back down the rankings and should be taking on former Bellator heavyweight champion Russian Alexander Volkov. Volkov in himself a technical, composed striker with a great amount of experience in the octagon. I think that'd be the way to build up Gane instead of throwing him right into a fight with Derek Lewis, which would really be the only thing between him and the heavyweight title, as seeing how Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic's 2 winner, will be taking on John Jones, and the winner of that fight is kind of talking about Derek Lewis or a Ciryl Gane or maybe an Alexander Volkov. So Volkov is the guy I'd like to see Ciryl Gane fighting next. Looking at the co-main event winner, Magomed Ankilov, I think that he moves up to 8. You look at number 7, it's right there, mathematically makes sense. Volkan Oezdemir doesn't have a fight booked, so I would think that that would be next to see 7 versus 8. And for Pedro Munoz, who picked up the victory there in what was the fight of the night, evening the score with Jimmy Rivera, I think that Jose Aldo would be the appropriate next fight for Munoz. Both guys coming off of wins. Aldo just beat Vera, doesn't have anything booked. Couple of the guys in that top 10 bantamweight division are already booked up. So I think Munoz versus Aldo makes all the sense in the world. This weekend it's a championship triple header. UFC 259 there from the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Middleweight champion Israel Adesanya with his 20-0 record moving up to 205 pounds to challenge Jan Blachowicz, looking to join the likes of Henry Cejudo, Conor McGregor, Daniel Cormier, and Amanda Nunez to become simultaneous multi-division champions. And you would also then add yourself to a list that includes BJ Penn, GSP, and Randy Couture of fighters in the UFC that have won championships in 2 weight classes. Blachowicz comes in having won 8 of 9, 4 in a row, 3 of those 4 by knockout. Knocked out Luke Rockhold. That's what set him on this path for the win streak, and captured the title, knocking out Dominic Reyes, who a lot of people felt was the heir apparent. On the other side, you have the middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, who has looked incredible running through a who's who of middleweights in path to that championship that he took from Robert Whittaker and has defended against Paulo Acosta and Yoel Romero, not to mention that fight of the year that he had to become interim champion against Kelvin Gastelum. Tried and true, the former kickboxing champion Israel Adesanya, approaching 100, if he didn't just pass 100 career fights. That's MMA, boxing, and kickboxing. Adesanya has a 75% finishing rate in MMA, 15 wins by knockout. Both fighters devastating left hook with their hands. That is their best strike. Don't forget that Otasanya possesses some wicked kicks and an incredible flying knee. Championship triple header, the co-main event. Women's GOAT Amanda the Lioness Nunez defends her featherweight championship. This is back-to-back featherweight title defenses. Nunez has been gone for about 9 months from competition as she was focused on her partner's pregnancy and childbirth. Now, having welcomed her child into the world, Nunez is back to defending her UFC titles, and she's doing this against Megan Anderson. So we got 20-4 Nunez against 10-4 Megan Anderson. Nunez has won 11 in a row, unbeaten since a 2014 loss to Kat Zingano. That includes 6 first-round knockouts and 5 fights going to the decision. So Nunez, really what we've seen, even though she is a submission and knockout threat, is she gets her work done early or the fights are going the distance. That's really what the recipe has been, and I think that we're in for a long, hard-fought night here at 145 pounds against a Megan Anderson, who in her last 2 fights, these back-to-back wins since the loss to Holly Holm, has been a finisher in the first round herself, submitting Zara dos Santos and then knocking out Norma Dumont. But again, the champion comes in as an overwhelming favorite, and we'll get to those betting odds here at the end of the segment. That third title fight is 135 pounds. It's the men's bantamweight title on the line. Champion Peter Yan, 15-1, defending the title for the first time against the 19-3 Aljamain Sterling. This is striker versus grappler, 2 guys that are mixed martial artists, but really have their pedigree in what they're good at. With the Russian, with Peter Yan, it's the striking. It's a 10-fight win streak. The last 4, some great names, beating Jose Aldo to win the title. It was a knockout with a front kick of Uriah Faber, not to mention he beat Jimmy Rivera, who's in the top 10, and also Cody Stamann. 7 wins by knockout of his 8 finishes. So Yan, a devastating striker. On the other side, you have Sterling, who comes in off of 5 wins in a row, beating Brett Johns, Cody Stamann, Jimmy Rivera, Pedro Munoz, and just submitting Corey Sandhagen. 8 submissions of his 10 finishes. Sterling, a collegiate wrestler who has really excelled in the grappling department, uses his striking now to set up his grappling because he knows that he doesn't, it's not that he doesn't want to stand with guys, but he knows that his biggest advantage and his easiest path to victory is getting those submissions. That's what he's been going after. Both guys coming with a 54% finishing rate. That main card is also going to see a pivotal one in the lightweight division. Drew Dober, 23-9, versus Islam Makhachev, 18-1. Makhachev, the pupil of Habib Nurmagomedov, who a lot of people, including the former champion, say is the future of the 155-pound division. Dober has won 6 of his last 7, is on a 3-fight win streak of knockouts, knocking out Marco Polo Reyes, Nasrat Hassapest, and taking the number 14 ranking from Alexander Hernandez. 16 finishes, 10 by way of knockout from Dober. Well, Islam has won 6 in a row. He has 10 finishes, 7 come by submission. Another grinded up grappler, another striker versus grappler, kind of old school matchup. But Dober does have a wrestling background that allows him to unleash his heavy hands. Opening up that pay-per-view main card is a light heavyweight bout. Top 5 rankings. We're talking about Alexander Rakic, 13-2, versus the 21-6 Thiago Santos, a former title challenger. Rakic, 10 finishes, 9 wins by knockout, coming off of a devastating ground performance, grinding up and pounding on Anthony Smith. A dimension to his game that we had not seen before, where he was standing and knocking guys out. On the other side, the former title challenger, Santos, after a 4-fight win streak, has lost 2 in a row. That includes his loss to Glover Teixeira after coming back from a year away due to the knee injury suffered in his title fight loss against John Bones Jones. An incredible pay-per-view, talking about 15 fights in all for UFC 259. It's only the first of 2 pay-per-views in March, and this already may be the card of the year. Your feature prelim has Dominic Cruz, the former bantamweight champion, against Casey Kenny, who's on a 3-fight win streak. Kenny, devastating leg kicks, and for Cruz, who has suffered multiple different leg injuries, that could play big dividends for Kenny. This one should be a lot of fun. Not to mention, you have Oscar, who's 13-0-1, number 3 in the flyweight rankings, taking on number 2 ranked Joseph Benavidez. If Oscar has a big performance, he could earn himself the next opportunity at the flyweight title after we give you some breaking news later. Also, on the prelims, as we go down to the early prelims, the Trail's own from Albuquerque, Jordan Espinosa, is on the card, taking on Tim Elliott. This one was supposed to happen in January. It's been rebooked. We know Espinosa, a wrestling background, a fast guy on the feet. He's hard to touch. He has accurate striking versus an awkward, mauling forward Tim Elliott, who makes his fights dirty. That one, low-key, has an opportunity to be fight of the night. One that's not getting much attention but really should be. Somebody should be looking for the rankings after this one in the welterweight division. Former CFFC, 13-0, former champion in that promotion. Sean Brady takes on Australia's Jake Matthews. Matthews comes in having won 6 of 7 since moving up from 155 to 170. 3 straight decisions, including his most recent, a win over Diego Sanchez. Well, the unbeaten Brady comes in off of submitting Christian Aguilera. Both guys have kind of similar games, where Brady, though, I feel, is the more tactical, cleaner striker. And Matthews has a slight edge in the grappling department, but a welterweight star could be born in that one. Not to mention the official Octagon debut of Contender Series alum Uros Medic, who's 6-0, 100% finishing rate, 5 first-round victories. That guy is somebody also to keep an eye on. Now, if you're interested in having a little bit of that extracurricular fun, yeah, we're talking about the betting lines real quick. Just going to go over the title fights. Otasanya coming in, you can regularly find him as a minus 250 favorite. People are expecting Otasanya to claim that second world title. Jan Blachowicz can be found at a plus 200 as the underdog. Nunez, a massive favorite, I said. She comes in at a minus 1200. You can find Megan Anderson all the way as low as plus 750 underdog. And Jan versus Sterling. If you couldn't tell when I was talking about it, it feels like the most even fight. It feels like it could be the best fight of the 3. And the odds, you can get both guys at minus 110. Pick your poison on who you'd rather go with. That one's a close one. UFC 259. So those early prelims start on UFC Fight Pass. Then you're going to go to ESPN Plus or over to ESPN for that middle set of prelims. And the pay-per-view is on ESPN Plus. Promise you guys the news, and we'll start off with LFA. LFA 101, the Undefeateds, set for March 12th. That's going to be the first of 3 straight events in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And the first card is Undefeateds. 14 unbeaten fighters in all. The main event, Dobson versus Graf. Go to cageminds.com to read the full fight card. LFA 102, set for March 19th. and LFA 103 set for March 26. We got a couple rumors for those cards. They're not confirmed yet by any of my sources or by the promotion. But for LFA 102, it looks like you're going to be seeing the 7-1 Eliza Johns against the 8-1 Bruno Souza. And then for LFA 103, you're going to be seeing the 10-3 Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi against 6-2 Jake Sebastian. Both of those fights, again, rumored but not official. Also announced on social media, flyweight from Hawaii, Ronnie Lawrence, who represents Jackson Wink MMA, has said he'll be a part of the LFA 103 card. Moving on to Bellator MMA. Bellator 255 on April 22nd has added at bantamweight, Jared Scoggins is going to be fighting Magomed Magomedov. At heavyweight, Matt Meathead Mitrione, the UFC veteran, is going to be taking on former collegiate wrestler Terrell Fortune. And in women's flyweight action, Japan's Kana Watanabe is going to be facing Brazil's Alejandra Lara. Bellator 256 set for April 9th. Featherweight bout. Former featherweight champion Julia Budd is going to be taking on Diana Silva, and Jeremy Kennedy against Adam Borish. Two great featherweight fights right there. Bellator 257 on April 16th has also added their own featherweight contest. Knockout artist Aaron Pico. Yeah, the kid's been doing some dirty knockouts. We all know that. He's going to be taking on Aiden Lee. And then added to Bellator 258 on May 7th at bantamweight, a long-awaited grudge match. Man, I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Since the first time I interviewed Patrick Mix, he's been calling for a fight with James Gallagher, and he finally gets it at Bellator 258. I couldn't be more stoked for that one. Now we'll move on to the UFC. UFC 261 has been announced for April 24th. It's going to be a championship double header with the women headlining and co-main eventing. Former strawweight champion Jessica Andrade did enough to impress in her flyweight debut, knocking out Caitlin Chikagian with that right punch to the body to earn herself a flyweight title shot against Valentina Shevchenko. And in the co-main event, former strawweight champion Rose Namajunas will look to become a two-time champion and try to dethrone China's Zhongwei Li. Also on that card, newly added, at middleweight, you're going to be seeing Carl Roberson against Brendan Allen. And in the light heavyweight division, a top 15 matchup is going to be seeing Jimmy Crute against former title challenger Anthony Lionheart Smith. UFC 263 has been announced for June 12th, and that main event will see the rematch of the flyweight title fight between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. Now the challenger and the champion get a full camp, full time to prepare, and a full recovery from the previous weight cut after having their initial bout come on just 3 weeks' notice. Couple more intriguing fights that have been announced around the UFC. Surging middleweight Sean Strickland is going to be fighting Krzysztof Jotko on May 1st. And lightweights Scott Holtzman will be facing Matthews Gamrot on April 10th. Don't want to leave you guys on sad news, but unfortunately must let you know just before I started recording, saw on social media that Khamzat Chimaev, the welterweight middleweight super prospect, has announced due to lingering effects from COVID-19 that did force him to pull out of his March 13th main event against Leon Edwards, will apparently also be forcing him into an early retirement. Keep up with CageMinds.com to see if this news has any change in the coming days. Thanks for watching Cage Minds MMA show. Keep with us across social media. Cage Minds Combat Sports News on Facebook, at Cage Minds MMA on Twitter, and Cage Minds _CSN on Instagram.